What's up everyone, and welcome to the video that I've been putting off. Okay, let me explain. This video is going to be my discussion video about the Walking Dead Telltale Games Season 1. That's a lot. A lot happens in this game. It's like a 13-hour game and there's so much to process. So, have I been putting this off? Kind of, because I want to make sure that I let you guys know all of my thoughts, everything that I was thinking during the game, as well as kind of like a review of the game. And that's hard to do. It's hard to summarize all of that happened in such a wonderful game into a video. So bear with me. I'm going to do the best that I can. I have a journal, and so after every video that I film, I take notes about what I thought about what happened in the game. That way when I get where I am now, it's not just like completely erased and blank. So I have my journal in front of me, and I'm going to be going through it. So I'm going to go through each episode that was in the season and talk about what I was thinking during that episode, and then at the end I'm going to answer some questions that I got from Instagram. So if you ever want to submit questions for review or discussion, you can do that on Instagram. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know down in the comments what you think about it and what you thought about the game if you played it. If you haven't played it, please leave, because there's going to be every spoiler that you could imagine in this video, and I don't want to ruin a game like this for you. I don't know why in 2020 you wouldn't have played this game unless you're like me and only played competitive games, which, you know, I'm reformed, okay? I'm working on this. I'm working through these things, and I'm entering the world of video games, and it is amazing. So if you haven't played this yet, please leave, go play it, and come back, because it's wonderful. Do it, trust me, and then come back and let me know your thoughts. So you guys know, a lot of you already know that I'm running a giveaway on my channel, but for those of you who might be new, I just want to let you know that I'm running a giveaway for a $50 digital code for either Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, or Steam. To be entered, all you have to do is like this video, comment, and make sure you're subscribed. Alright, let's just jump back into Season 1. I'm going to do my best to look at the camera, but I do have this journal, so you might see me looking back and forth. I don't want to have to cut everything, so just bear with me on that. Oh, my thoughts on episode 1. I thought that as soon as the game started, it was really interesting that we were being put into the perspective of a criminal. At least that's what it appeared when you first started the game. I was like, so many questions already about who this main character is, what we're going to be doing with him, and where the story is going to go. So the game really starts off on a captivating premise. And then, you know, the police car wrecks, and then all of a sudden it's the zombie apocalypse. They just throw you right in. I thought that episode 1 also was really good because that's when you meet Clem, and I think their meeting was like perfect. He's trying to figure out what's going on and to escape all of this and get to safety. And there's this little girl left in a house that is fending for herself. Her parents are gone. She doesn't know where they're at or like why they haven't come back. And there's just a strange man in her house, and then you know where it goes from there. So I really liked episode 1 because of that. It really introduces Clem and Lee's relationship, and we know that that's the biggest part of this game. So with that, one of the first things I was thinking was that I can't wait to watch these characters grow and develop. Because of the way that they met and the instant bond that they had, I knew that they were gonna be something like that. This was going to be a main part of the game. And so my first thoughts were, I just can't wait to see their relationship grow. Because I'd never played a Telltale game before, the choices were a little bit challenging at first. I didn't have a lot of time to read. I was trying to rush through them and just click something before nothing happened at all. But as I went through the series, I got a lot better at reading faster, kind of knowing what to expect and where my choices would lead. I was kind of thrown into like, the game doesn't really tell you when you're going to have to make a tough choice. I mean, when you first start out, if you'd never played a game like this before. But again, as you go, you get better at it. And I would know kind of when a tough choice was coming. But even then, they're pretty secretive about it and kind of just throw you at it. I noticed right off the bat that solving puzzles was going to be challenging but rewarding. One of my favorite parts in the game is the pharmacy, because that's when we really start to get a lot of backstory about Lee, and that's in episode 1. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought that that's when I first started noticing how well the storytelling was done in this game. Just to be thrown into this pharmacy that happens to be his parents, there are pictures of them, you can tell that he has an emotional connection to them, and then especially at the end of the episode when he has to grab his brother's key card and he has to kill his brother. That's when I really realized, like, oh my god, this is going to be an emotional journey, and I was not wrong. So now we're going to move on to episode 2. Holy crap, what an episode. That episode is like straight out of some horror novel. I mean, I'm going to repeat this a lot, but the storytelling in this game is phenomenal. I don't know if it's that it's phenomenal or if it's that this is kind of the first game like this that I ever played. But we'll see, because I'm going to continue to play games like this. I would say it's probably both. I would say that I'm not very experienced, and the storytelling in this game is phenomenal. I mean, even before I played it, I heard that it was really good. And it lived up to all of my expectations and more. Episode 2, when you get to the farm, like, you can feel something is off and creepy about this family, but I did not expect that. I did not expect that at all. It was like straight out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something. If you guys haven't seen that movie, you won't get that reference, but you should go watch it. I loved this episode. I found that there was a lot of mystery. There was kind of whodunit. There was like exploration of this creepy house and this farm, and there was also like character development that happened here between the group, especially with Larry and Lily. I just felt like altogether this episode 2 was a really good episode. You start to notice in episode 2 that you're forming a community, like Kenny and Lee and Clem and Duck and Katja and Larry and Lily and Carly, and then you also have Ben at this point, are just starting to get closer, and you're starting to learn more about them and their group interactions and their dynamics. So you really start to feel the sense of a community at this point. And with that is amazing drama. Like, sometimes in this game, you just want to sit back and eat some popcorn and watch it unfold. Sometimes it's like a reality TV show. But I loved that aspect of it. There was comedic relief from everything that was going on and just drama. They also painted a good picture. Like, you wouldn't necessarily get along 100% and agree on everything when every decision you make is pretty much life or death. I started to notice in episode 2 that the gameplay was going to be varied and creative. So you go from things like solving puzzles to basically FPS, like first-person shooter game, because you're knocking out zombies with a gun, to like moving a tractor and using it as cover. I just think that the gameplay is varied, which helps a lot when you think of like a point and click. So I thought that they did a really good job mixing it up in this episode, is really when it started to happen. Another thing I noticed about the gameplay is when they have you push Q repetitively, sometimes it goes fast, sometimes it goes slow, and sometimes you never make it to the end of the like animation. And when you're pushing Q, especially in a struggle, it feels like you're actually struggling because of the resistance they put on the pushing Q. So for example, if someone is like attacking Lee, or a zombie has like their hands around his throat and you're pushing Q, you can feel the struggle. And so I think this game did a really good job of intertwining that gameplay to make you kind of feel like you're really there. It was really immersive, I thought. And I don't know if I'm the only one who feels like that, so let me know down below what you think about that mechanic. I just thought that it was well timed every time, like how fast you had to push it, how long you had to push it, etc. made you really feel like that part of the story was happening. Episode 2 is also when I started thinking, I really hope the rest of these seasons and episodes live up to this one. Obviously, I don't know yet because I've only played season 1 still at this point, but I started to really fall in love with this game, and I have such high expectations and hopes for the rest of the seasons and episodes. They also do a really good job of leaving you wondering what's going to happen next. I especially like the scenes at the very end of episodes where it's like, coming next on The Walking Dead. It's like, I can't imagine playing this game as it came out and having to wait for episodes. I'm going to have to do that in the future when I keep playing these games and play newer ones. There's no way. I would have been a nervous wreck waiting for the next episode. But that's good. I mean, that means that they're doing a good job making you care and doing good storytelling. I also really like the fact that at the end of an episode, they show your choices compared to others. That's genius, because a lot of times my choices were in a minority compared to everyone else. And I think that's because of my decision making, also because I'm new to these games and I was struggling to quite understand them. But a lot of it's just because of my decision making. All right, moving on to episode 3. This episode was called A Long Road Ahead. This was probably my least favorite episode. I really hated the train puzzle. Obviously, a lot happened in this episode. This is when we met Chuck. This is when Duck started to get sick, and I believe it was this episode. Yeah, it was this episode that him and Katja died. That was really hard, guys. That was a hard pill to swallow, and I knew that it was going to change Kenny, and I didn't see it coming with Katja, but after it happened, I understood. That made sense. She had no will to live anymore. But it was heartbreaking. That whole 5-minute sequence was absolutely heartbreaking, and there was no way I was going to make Kenny do that. And with that, I just want to say that this game makes some bold moves. They do. And in order to do that, you have to have a couple of things. You have to have really good storytelling. You have to have an audience that's captivated and cares about their characters, even if they die, and cares about the story. In order to do such bold moves, I feel like you really have to have your audience drawn in and loving this game. Because if not, then some of the moves that they do in this game could be questionable, like what happened with Duck. But I fully support it because I feel like it really adds to the realism, the immersion, and tells a story about a horrific experience. It's gritty, it's honest, and I just think it was done well, even though it hurt. And this episode is also when you had to decide to either leave Lily or not because of her shooting Carly. I hated that. I hated the fact that she did that. I really wanted to see Carly through, especially because she was forming a relationship with Lee. I would have loved to have seen where that went. Looking back now that I know that Lee passes away, I'm not sure that it would have been worth it to the developers, but it would have been really cool just to see Lee through more seasons, obviously, and the potential of a relationship with Carly, because I really liked her from the start. She was one of my favorite characters from the start. So when Lily shot her, I was pissed. I mean, I was absolutely pissed. And I think that's part of why I decided to leave her behind. And also, I was trying to think about what I would actually do. And then looking back, I'm still not sure, to be honest with you. But she is a risk. I mean, who's to say she's not going to point a gun at Kenny next because she was already mad at Kenny and then kill Kenny? It's just not something that we could really risk, I felt like. But it wasn't easy to leave her behind. I mean, you still care about these people and you know that you're basically leaving them in a death trap. I noticed that the pacing and the timing was done really well in this game. They go from periods of intense emotional stress to just everyday life, like gathering supplies. Usually things happen on those trips too, but they do a really good job giving you a break from everything going on and then throwing you right back in, and then giving you a break and throwing you back in. And I think that was really well. They can't have you stressed out the whole time, but they also can't have you bored. So going into season 4, we had 2 new characters. We had Omid and Krista. I ended up really liking them, especially with the ending. We know that Clem is going to them and hopefully they're going to take care of her. I guess we'll find out. I don't know yet, obviously. But it was cool that we got new characters from that. But that episode I just felt wasn't as good as the rest of them, but don't get me wrong, it was still important. I mean, especially the very beginning. I would say the first half of that episode was way more important than the latter half. So entering episode 4, we are in Savannah, Georgia. And if you guys watched my playthrough, you know how much I love Savannah, Georgia. And I felt like they really captured the atmosphere that Savannah is in real life. And I really appreciated that. Episode 4 was really good because it again brought back a mystery. We now know that Clem had been talking to someone on the walkie. We didn't know who. That just added a lot of mystery and intrigue to the story, as well as the idea that we were going to be searching for Clem's parents. Bringing it back to episode 3 really quick, I also really liked the fact that they showed more bonding between Lee and Clem in episode 3, him having to cut her hair and teaching her how to shoot, just more dad activities. I really loved that, and I know that Clem's gonna hold on to those memories forever. But back to episode 4, I felt starting this episode was so good, minus Chuck and everything, but that part was kind of sad. But also we weren't too attached to Chuck at that point. But I exploring that enormous house and just the atmosphere, and Kenny kind of starting to lose his mind made things really interesting. I just thought that episode 4 was done really well. And then we meet Molly, and shoo, what a character. I loved that character. I don't know if she's going to be in future games. I would guess not, because she made it very clear that she wants to fly solo and do this thing on her own, which she can. I really liked her character. I thought she was different from everyone else and added kind of a twist to everything in the group. Also, in episode 4, we started to find out more about Crawford and what they were. I thought that was a genius idea to add like this like elitist cult almost. Just, more storytelling. Like, I don't even know how to come up with these ideas, but I freaking love it. That's why we play games like this. It's like to learn about these worlds and these stories, and it's just like this game just like woes you and wows you from every corner. I didn't expect that coming, and I thought it added a lot of like interesting stuff about the world. I loved that part. And then you meet the cancer survivor group. Obviously, we know how that turns out for Lee and what Vernon does. We find out at the end that he stole the boat from them, but I don't think they're bad people. I think that, everyone is trying to make their own way. And I just thought it was so interesting about the dynamics of the cult and how they kicked out the cancer survivor group because they saw them as weak. And even just the idea that there was a cancer support group. I mean, I know those are things in real life, and I think it's really cool that they added that into the game. This game tells a really unique story, and that's really what's so captivating and keeps you coming back, because you're like, you have no idea what's going to happen next. And then to wrap it all up, and episode 5, I really didn't think I was gonna cry, guys. I really didn't think so. When you're filming a video and you're playing, there is a certain amount of like, I don't even know how to put it into words. Like, a lot of times I do forget that the camera's on, but in something really emotional like that, I just didn't expect to cry. I thought that I would cry afterwards, but no. If you guys saw my video, I was almost bawling. Like, I was fighting hard back the tears. And I did not expect that to happen. But that just goes to show that in the previous episodes, they did a really good job of making you care about not only Lee and Clem, but everyone. But in this instance, especially Lee and Clem. And if you watched my video, you know that I did not make a decision that I felt like I should have. And that's that I didn't have Clem kill Lee. I was feeling really emotional in the moment, and I didn't want Clem to have to do that, but looking back, it still bothers me. I mean, I know this game isn't real. It's a fantasy world built for storytelling, but it still bothers me that I left him there. And so I just want to make it very clear that if I could replay that, I would change that decision. I wish I wouldn't have done that. And I think that Clem could have healed from that and felt a lot better going forward than knowing that she left him back there. But because I wanted it to be an authentic experience, I left it in my video, and I'm going to keep it that way because that's the choice that I made at the time. And sometimes in life, we don't make the best choices. So definitely found that was really, really difficult, as it should have been. Just that whole episode was really hard. I did think it was really interesting when we found out about the guy on the walkie. I mean, he had clearly lost his mind and was kind of not right altogether before, but the idea that he wanted his family back, and so he kidnapped Clem, like, again, just this unique story that's very dramatic but done very well. I was very pleased with the ending. I thought that they did a really good job, and I wouldn't change anything about it, even Lee dying. I mean, obviously I wanted to see Lee out, and I wanted him to be in more episodes and seasons, but I accept what Telltale did, and I think it's a good choice. And then now we're gonna see Clem's journey, I guess. I mean, I've seen like covers and stuff of the game, so I know that we see her through at least in season 2, but I don't really know much more after that. But I hope that we follow her journey all the way through, and hopefully she'll reflect on some things about Lee, and you guys see where I'm going with this. So all in all, I would give this game out of 10 a 100. Yeah, this game exceeded my expectations by far, especially in gameplay and storytelling. It just really exceeded my expectations. Now, this game is pretty old. It was done in 2012, so the graphics aren't great, but I forgot about that, and I'm someone who loves graphics. I can't play old games very often. It's kind of hard for me sometimes. But this game, like, you completely forget about it because the storytelling is so good. So for an entry into choice and point and click and story-based games and episodic adventures, whatever you want to call them, this was a great entry for me, and I am so thankful that I played this game. So thank you to the person who recommended it for me. I really appreciate it. I loved this game. I'm gonna move on to the questions that I got from Instagram. I got some really good ones, so I'm really excited for this. So the first question I got was, how did the game affect you, and how are you going to heal from it? Let's talk about first how I'm going to heal from this game, because that's a great question. I would say one of the first things I'm going to do to heal from this game is to play more of it, because part of the hurt and, wondering is like what happens, what else is going on in Clem's life. And one of the healing things is to go through that. So I think it will be super healing for me when I continue the seasons and see Clem's story out and everyone else's. So just to keep playing the game, I think will be healing. And also to just continue to reflect on the choices that I made and the wonderful storytelling here, I think is also healing. And finally, something that's healing is doing what I'm doing right now. Talking to you guys about games is my favorite thing to do. And to process it out loud, and even just on Instagram, the people who have DM'd me about the game, just to talk about the game, I feel like is healing in of itself. And I'm really appreciative for that. And how did this game affect me? I think this game made me reflect on myself a lot. And a video game should always make you do that, especially games like this. They really should make you think and reflect on yourself. And what I learned from this game about myself is that in a situation like this, I would not make a good leader. I sometimes am too emotional, as you can see with the decision I made at the very end of the game, and less logical. That being said, I work on a crisis team. I know how to handle crises, and I think that I would be better at handling the emotional side of things rather than the decision making. If that makes sense. So like taking care of everyone's emotional needs and someone else handle like the big decisions, because when they have to be made quick, we can see here that I didn't make the best decisions. So I think that the way this game affected me was really just made me reflect on myself and who I am and what role I would play in a situation like this. And this game also broke my heart. But it taught me things about grief and experiencing things in video games and how these things can really make you feel. Like, obviously, I cried a lot in that last episode and even after it. And I think that's a good thing. I think it helped me process and work through some things. So that's how this game affected me, and that's how I'm going to heal from it. This is a great question. I got asked, do I think that I'm going to have to face Carly again after kicking her out in episode 3? Oh God, I hope not. I really hope not. For 2 reasons. 1, I'm not sure that I made the best decision there. And 2, she's a force to be reckoned with. And she's a ticking time bomb. So I hope not, but also I kind of hope so, because that would be really cool to include characters from season 1 that made it in season 2. I don't know if they do that, but that would be really cool. And that's a really good question. So I hope not for character's sake, but I hope so because I think that would be really cool and an interesting twist to the game. So the next question I got asked me what my favorite character is, what my favorite episode is, and what I wish I would have done differently. So I already talked about this a little bit, but one thing I wish I would have done differently for sure is not leaving Lee there. I really wish I would have had Clem kill him, because again, I really think that's something she could have healed from better than leaving him there. That's a big one. If I could go back and redo it, I totally would. So I just think that that was a really bad decision. I'm sure there are like other small things that I would have done differently, but I accept my playthrough for what it is, even with the big thing with Lee. But if I had to pick one thing that I wish I would have done differently, that's definitely hands down it. Ooh, my favorite character. So I'm going to break this down into 2 things between Clem and Lee, and between the rest of the characters. So between Clem and Lee for season 1, I'm going to pick Lee, and here's why. Because you play as Lee. So you get a much more intimate experience with Lee and his thought processes and his journey. But Clem is just like, if Lee is at 100, Clem is at a 99 for who I would pick. I'm just not picking Clem for this season because I didn't play as her. But I love her. Yep. I love that kid, and I can't wait to see her life. But I'll have to pick Lee for this one just because, again, he's who we played as. He's who we related to in this game and what we felt the most of. And I can't wait to learn more about Clem. And as for the rest of the group, that was also kind of hard. But I would have to pick Kenny just because he was Lee's sidekick. I mean, he did some questionable things towards the end, but that's because he was losing his mind. I would be too. But for the rest of the group, I would pick Kenny as my favorite character for this season. But I liked everyone else. You guys know I really liked Lily. I liked Katja and Duck. I think one of my favorite scenes in this season was when Duck was helping Lee solve the mystery. So yeah, I would pick Lee as the main character and then Kenny as like a side character. My least favorite character was Ben. He was just annoying. He made really bad decisions. He was stupid. But I think that they did a good job with him still, because not everyone is going to be good at this stuff, you know? He just didn't know, and he made really poor decisions. So he was my least favorite character. But we always need a character to dislike. So I'm glad that Telltale made a character like him. And my favorite episode. My favorite episode was episode 2. The one I have on the screen here where it says St. John Dairy. That was just, I felt like, out of this world episode. It was so unique, and I liked the horror in it. I liked how creepy it was, and I liked how everything slowly developed over time. And then all of a sudden, they're sitting down at the dinner table eating humans, and Lee is trying to stop them. I just absolutely loved that entire episode. So great. But right before that, like right under that, would be the time in Savannah, because it was also very unique, and there were horror aspects. But I just think episode 2 is just, it was a great episode. I would love to replay that episode right now. Good thing I can if I want to, right? Okay, and the last question I got was, how does this game compare to other Telltale games that I've played or any other story games? I don't know yet, because I haven't played any. This was my first one. But that being said, I'm glad you asked this question, because this game will set a standard for me in this genre of storytelling and Telltale games. Because now this game will be what I base my opinion on for every other game that I play. I mean, like I said, it's a 100 out of 10 for me, and the rest of the games that I play have a lot to live up to. So ask me that a question again later, like at the end of the seasons, or, even next season, I could answer that question again. But for now, this was my first one, so I don't know yet, but it set the bar high, and I will be basing every game, story game, episodic adventure, etc. that I play after this one. I have played like 2 episodes of Life is Strange, but I stopped because I was too addicted to competitive games like a moron. So I will be playing those on my channel. And I think that would be a good one to compare, because it's not a Telltale game, and see like the decision making and the storytelling and stuff and how that unfolds in that game. So yeah, stay tuned for the rest of that answer, but I hope that answers your question to the best that I could do. So that's going to conclude it for my discussion about this game. I did play the DLC 400 Days, but and I did record it. However, there was sound difficulties, and so there was no sound in the game. But I'm not quite done with it yet. I'll probably do a second video, like a short video about what I thought about that and if the DLC was worth it, etc. So I'm sorry for not including that in my discussion, but I will have that coming soon. Let me know in the comments, what did you guys think about this game? Do you agree or disagree with anything that I said? I'm open for discussion. That's why I started this channel. I want to talk to you guys about video games. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you thought about my opinions and what some of your opinions on the game were. And feel free to answer any of the questions that I got asked on Instagram as well. For those of you who watched my playthrough, thank you so much for supporting me. It means the world to me, just you guys being here, watching, talking to me about the game. It made me feel less alone when playing such an emotional game. Like, I knew when I uploaded a video that there were going to be people in the comments that I could process how I felt about the game with. And I loved hearing what you guys had to say and what your opinions about the game were. So, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and a special thank you to my Patreons. Stay tuned for the screen after, and I will see you guys next time.